People are coming in. Hello, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I see you're entering, and I really appreciate everyone who's here to join us. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement. Page One Publishing is located on the traditional territories of the Wasanic and Lekwungen speaking people, where we live, learn, play, and work. We acknowledge that the historical relationship to the land and territories of these peoples continues to this day, and we work, play, speak, connect with gratitude. I'm really pleased to be here today with Trina and Lisa. Trina is General Manager of Parkside Hotel. Lisa is Innovation and Sustainability Specialist at Ecologist. Hopefully I got that right. She can correct me afterwards. We have Douglas Magazine. I'm Carla Sorrell, editor of Douglas Magazine, and we have our new issue is coming out should be around next Tuesday. And this is a great conversation because both Trina and Lisa are interviewed for separate features in what is themed our green business issue. And putting together the green business issue was absolutely a delight to work on. I was totally overwhelmed with how many incredible green sustainable businesses are doing well in Victoria. We were spoiled for choice with people and companies to feature, to speak to get insight from. Just before the issue came out, I was invited to the EcoStar Awards put on by Synergy Enterprises. And again, it was one of those evenings where I was just bowled over by the innovation from new, younger startups to established businesses who have made some big changes to their business models. So when the issue does come out, as always, I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear things you enjoyed, what you'd like to see more of. Green business, sustainable businesses is certainly not a one theme topic for us at Douglas. It's an ongoing conversation, and it is certainly one of the most important prongs in the conversations around business and culture changes that I'm hearing from people I speak to every day. So it's a touch point now, but it certainly is something we'll be speaking more and regularly about when we talk to business leaders in Victoria. So without further ado, I will start the roundtable. This is a really nice complement to the issue, and I'll let Trina and Lisa speak a little bit about where they're coming from. I was hoping today we would start with an overview of each of their companies, and I'd let them talk to you about the key features that define Ecologist and Parkside Hotel as sustainable businesses. Trina, would you like to start?
Thank you, Carla. I'm the general manager at the Parkside Hotel and Spa. And we've been very fortunate that when we opened up in 2009, the original developers always had a vision, a building and a business that was forward thinking in sustainability. And so when we first actually opened our doors or even broke ground on the original land here is we were registered with LEED certification and were built to LEED Platinum standards. So right out of the gate in 2009, we were one of the first buildings in Canada to go down that road because LEED was relatively new to Canada. We did not keep our long-time status with LEED. It was more for the initial development of the building. When I started with the business in 2009, when they also opened, is when I started. And right away, it was great to have a building that was built with very forward-thinking innovation off the start, but also too, you have to mirror that with operations. And so right away, we were able to certify ourselves with Green Key, which is a certification model for hotels throughout North America. And so we became a 5 Green Key, which is the highest key rating that you can achieve. And we've maintained that ever since. And every year we just keep developing on being more forward thinking in how we approach and how we look at travel. And, people travel because they want to see nice destinations. They want to see culture and heritage. They want to see the community. And so as a member of the tourism industry, it's important that we protect these natural resources that we have. They have more value to us in that state than not in that state. So we just keep evolving every year. So after Green Key, we then got into carbon emissions and having Synergy Enterprise do our calculations, which we've been doing since, I think 2015 or 16, I believe. And then we became carbon neutral with offsetters and been carbon neutral for a number of years now. And in the last kind of year and a half to 2 years, have been really focusing on our 17 sustainable goals and really mapping those out in a very fun, exciting way. And at the same time, we're doing all this while still being a hotel and meeting the needs of guests and meeting the needs of many different types of guests and meeting the needs of our employees and of our shareholders and stakeholders. So it's very exciting. So that's what the Parkside's all about. At the end of the day, we're a hotel, but we just approach it differently.
Amazing. That's a great overview. Thanks so much, Trina. Lisa, could you speak to ecologist?
Yeah, definitely. Trina, so many great things that you're taking on there. It's inspiring to hear what Parkside is up to. For ecologists, this has been a transition for us. You may know us as Sitka, basically over 20 years of working in surf and apparel. We've had quite a large transition over to switching to a few key areas where we want to make an impact. So people always comes first. That's definitely something that we're passionate about. We are considering the planet in every decision, and we also make product. That's how we make our money. So conscientious decisions in making those decisions to create product are also key for us. Similar to Trina here, we have been carbon offsetting through the offsetters as well, contributing to the Great Bear Rainforest Project. We also offset our e-com shipping through Pachama, which is pretty awesome. We love to be able to offset the things that we can't. We know that we're going to have to continue to provide for our customers. We're doing a product level assessment this year as well. So we know the emissions factor for creating each and every product, and then the scale of that on the whole business. And from 2013 till 2020, we also did similar to Trina, we did a carbon assessment in seeing that we've reduced our emissions by nearly 4 times, which is really wild. So when we were originally operating as Sitka, it was a wholesale model. So, international distribution centers and multiple accounts. We were manufacturing in China. We really made a commitment in 2014 with a goal date of 2015 to move everything back to Canada and North America. And that's exactly what we did. And I think we can see the impact of making those decisions. Something that felt sort of intuitively correct from the team. We were able to put numbers behind that, which is really exciting, and actually measure those results. We also, for people, we offer a family living wage, which is really important for all members across the team, whether they're in Whistler or Victoria, or even our remote teams. That's at shop level and factory team, everyone makes that, which is awesome. There's also an interesting opportunity for employees to be invested in the company. So they're offered share options, in the future, very, very shortly in the future, so that they can also have a win when we win, which is great. And of course, we love supporting our community, reducing waste whenever possible. We're also Surfrider and Green Business certified from the Victoria VIGBC, I believe is the right term there. And for the 3rd year in a row, we've had certification at our shop team level. So we're now a green leader in that space, which is awesome. And then in terms of planet, always since 2014, I believe we've been doing 1% for the planet contributions, plus additional sort of grassroots opportunities to support our community members. And we're really on a mission to end fast fashion, end the idea of clothing as disposable, and end plastic clothing. So that's kind of what we're up to.
Just a little bit of stuff for both of you, right? We've just heard an incredible, comprehensive list of many things a business can be doing to tackle their carbon footprint. So thank you, Lisa. That's incredible. And the last thing you said, you kind of touched on my next question, which is, what are some of the unique challenges posed within your individual sectors? And You know, it strikes me, and I hope people listening realize hotel, tourism industry, and clothing are two big, tough sectors in terms of emissions production. And the work and effort you're doing are, so focused on your sector. I wonder, maybe I'll go back to you, Lisa, because you did kind of just touch on that. What you're trying to do in fashion. Fashion is there's the traditional structure is pretty damaging, and that's really, a lot of people are shining a light to that now.
Yeah, I'm encouraged to see the changes that are happening with some organizations. I think in the past 10 years, it's definitely starting to shift, but it is one of those legacy industries that is ripe for disruption. I think it's going to take, mostly it's going to be private organizations rather than policy. We can kind of set the stage to make policy possible, maybe in recycling and all those sorts of futures. But really it's $2.5 trillion industry here that has an opportunity to make massive changes. I feel like, from sourcing, transparency issues, there's been labor issues, dispute labor issues across the globe, falsifying certifications and things like that. It's a massive industry when we go from raw material into milling to dyeing to sending that over to manufacturing. Maybe that's overseas in different areas, and then back to finally all these distribution centers. And a lot of that goes to waste. The average returns for most companies is 35%. Off-cut waste is usually 20%. So yeah, there's a lot of innovation possible in the way that we manufacture or the materials that we choose to use.
Wonderful, thanks. Lisa, sorry, Trina, would you mind speaking to the hotel, hospitality hotel sector?
Yeah, in regards to challenges that we see as a sector, I mean, as a sector, traditionally, maybe I shouldn't say traditionally, actually, tourism was very small, but in kind of the 80s and modern tourism and modern travel, we definitely have gone very excessive, where when not done right, tourism can wipe out culture and heritage and do some serious damage to communities. And we're even seeing kind of these words leading up to the pandemic, like over tourism or mass tourism, and seeing this a lot in the media. But definitely, on the other side, the one thing that I'm seeing is a big shift in our policy. I'm seeing it here locally. I'm seeing it provincially, and I'm seeing it federally, and I'm really seeing it happening globally. Is tourism is starting to slowly recognize how they need to protect these resources, these natural resources, heritage, culture. We have to keep communities clean because nobody wants to travel to a destination that has, it become one culture, right? And so right now is actually a very exciting time for our industry because we're seeing big change in policy from DMOs, destination management organizations on all levels, really starting to hone in on this and look for certification in very strong models like biosphere tourism or green destinations, who are doing a great job of partnering with, the United Nations and United Nations World Travel Organization, and creating frameworks that we can really start working in. So we're starting to see this shift, and it's very exciting. And when you look here in Victoria, it's really cool that, here in Victoria, we have 2 hotels that are carbon neutral, ourselves and Inn at Laurel Point, and Inn at Laurel Point's been at it for over 10 years. So that's very exciting, or to see Harbour Air doing the work that they're doing. So it's great to see this shift. And I really hope that the pandemic doesn't prevent businesses from staying on this shift and moving forward, because that's maybe what could hold us up. And really is how is airline and air travel going to respond to all of this? That definitely is a big contributor to global emissions when you look at it as airline. And you know, before the pandemic, they were making big announcements of changes they were going to make in trying to work towards offsetting their work, but I haven't seen any news of that since since the pandemic. So we might have lost that one. So we might have years of work ahead, and that's really where we have to work from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective. But it definitely it's great in the 20 years I've been in the industry. I'm now in the last few years seeing a great positive change. So it is good.
Well, we're certainly not there yet.
No.
Thank you so much. It's really nice, Trina, to hear you just talk about the, you know, the hotel management organizations changing expectations and guidelines and raising the bar across an industry. I think that's really hopeful to think that people at higher levels are pulling everyone up, or at least pulling expectations up. And I know it's really interesting. Both of you have spoken about it. You have these changes and these shifts. Certainly, ecologyst made a major shift from one business model to another. Trina spoke really nicely and well about what had been in the intention for the Parkside Hotel from the beginning. But my next question was just about, for other companies, how have you balanced the cost of changing a business model, or what kind of strategies do people need to make that shift to justify the longer term, and it might be one simple process or a bigger shift to the business model. Trina, maybe you could just continue speaking, then we can move to Lisa.
Yeah, sure. I mean, even being purposely built to be sustainable, it doesn't mean that the owner group hasn't had tough decisions and hasn't, you know, kind of said, oh, Trina, that might be a little forward thinking. What does the ROI look like? And so, and also too, I work a lot with other hotels who do come to me and they say, okay, this is where we're at. How can I get my owner group to make decisions to make change, right? And so, you know, where I've always kind of, when I'm talking to other businesses, is always kind of say, when you're going to make the change, start small, start with your low hanging fruit, like your eco efficiencies. Very easy to do, very easy to show the return on investment. And it's just smart business to change your light bulbs out or have an efficient boiler. So kind of start there. Also, too, a lot of times we forget in sustainability that there's a whole social side that, again, you have a lot of wins with that we can be looking at. So, you know, it can be like Lisa mentioned, like a living wage, or it can be making sure if you're at a hotel, like everybody gets lunch or a meal provided. These extra things above and beyond can go a long way and not really cost a lot and be beneficial overall for the company. And then the last thing too is there is at some point, and this is what we did a couple of years ago, is we really wanted to take on more, but we realized that we needed the consumer's help in a sense. So we created a eco contribution fee as a hotel, and we're very, very transparent about it. And we educate all our guests about it, and they can opt in or out. That's their choice. But we have a 98% plus success rate of opting in. So, and this is large corporate groups and large corporations who are booking our hotel, who are like, absolutely. And it's $1.25 per room, and it's managed by the green team. And it goes to the offsets to help do the offsets with offsetters, because, you know, that was a hard one to get the owner group to wrap their head around. Because for a hotel, I mean, we're paying well over $10,000 a year in those offsets. So, and we're going to keep growing that, and that's kind of our future plan. So there's low-hanging fruit that owners can buy in quickly, and then you move your way forward. You do have to sometimes think outside the box, and we've had great success with that model.
Well, that's great. That's really helpful. Thanks. What about you, Lisa?
I think this is an ongoing conversation for us, but really, making those massive decisions, it didn't come out without pain points, right? Like moving manufacturing back to Canada, we appreciate that because of the people aspect, the environmental aspect. There's, different regulations when we choose to manufacture locally. So that was a huge move for us, but what I really think is the possibility, the opportunity is to educate our customers on what, our community really, on why we have a little bit of a higher price point, what that means for them. How many wears are they going to get out of that? We do offer a lifetime guarantee. And what that means is you're not buying a new product every, year. Hopefully that you're keeping it for, again, it really does perform over time. In addition, we offer programs like repairs for life, which is really exciting too. So we can keep that product with you and operating, again, saving on cost and emissions also, by creating that new product. It's like almost, 8 to 10 wears for a fast fashion product is what people typically use for those, which is horrifying. Usually those go straight to landfill. And that's not something that we really want to, think about. We want to end that idea of these products as disposable again, right? So but in having balancing costs in business operations and people and also, still maintaining our contribution and commitment to the environment, it does have a slight cost increase. But we also think that this is important when companies are taking more responsibility for the materials, the physical products that they're using. It's important to really think about what companies aren't doing that and why their prices are so low and what the true cost of that item really is. That's just how we approach that conversation.
Well, Lisa, you kind of also covered a question I'd like to ask a little later, so I'm going to ask you the rest of it now. But you talked a little bit about educating your customers, and I know from our previous conversation you said a lot of your customers do come looking for you, and they're looking for clothes that have markedly less environmental impact. But what other kinds of ways do you educate customers about those some of the decisions you made, like the wage and the things and shifting suppliers and stuff that might not be known to them?
Oh yeah. Besides what you can find on our website, what you can chat with us on social media, on our blog, we try to create content that's accessible and hit some main points for our community to really dig into it with us. There are, the little fun facts that we like to share, but it's also in those one-to-one conversations. Chat with anybody on our team, and they're like ready to get in that conversation with anyone who shows up in our spaces. I really do believe as well that, our community are the leaders for us. We're listening. We want to hear everything they say. We're combing through constantly all the product feedback, all of the communication feedback. How often do you want to hear from us? What do you want to hear from us about? It's really about providing the support for the journey that they're already on and the goals that they have set for themselves. And if it's something where they're pushing back on a specific material or a specific problem that they want solved for them, that's how we take our product into the future, really.
Yeah, and for those of you who are going to read the feature, there's a lot to talk about the transparency, and I really found your social media helpful in terms of breaking down some of that data in really bite-sized bits and linking it to some of the items that are available from the company.
Yeah, and what you can expect from us in the future as well. We're going to be doing a yearly carbon assessment, so you can see how we're doing over time. Setting some clear expectations for our customers too in the future, and then reporting back to you and again getting that feedback and listening to what our community needs.
Wonderful. How about Parkside Hotel, Trina? How do your customers come looking for what you offer, or are you educating?
I wish.
It's a great hotel anyways. So
in the travel landscape, if we kind of talk like kind of pre-pandemic, no, people didn't. And you would get people who are absolutely conscientious about their food, about their clothing maybe, but because of travel is typically a high ticket price. And there's a point where a consumer and then it's really hard to also understand which business is doing what. I mean, the hotel industry created the term greenwashing. So we've mastered, some of them have mastered it, right? But you know, when you look at how people book and they're, you know, you see the rise of Airbnb, you're on Expedia, how do you stand out to another business that's on Expedia when you're just one of 50 listed, or probably like way more than 50, I should say. But so it's very hard. And pre-pandemic, the research was very clear that people wouldn't pay a higher price point. Now, when people before the pandemic would come to the hotel and discover that, oh my gosh, this is what they're doing, we would get a lot of feedback then. And so people would then become, we have a very loyal following of people who are very regulars with us. And it's because they've come once by accident, discovered us on Expedia or discovered us wherever, didn't look or didn't care about, you know, thinking about sustainability. But when they got here and then saw all the educational pieces and how we communicate to guests and what we're doing, then we would see the comment cards come in saying like, wow, right? And so they're very happy going forward to keep staying with us. We have seen a very weird shift in the last kind of like literally 6 months. And this is actually the corporate side. I think a lot of businesses right now are making a big shift and saying like, as we're coming out of the pandemic, we need to do things differently. So we're seeing a lot of our corporate leads come through our sales department who are actually asking now up front for our green policies. And they want to see verification and certification. Not just like, here's our internal policy book, but like, how do you put your seal on it, right? And so that's been a big shift. And I would say probably 2 or 3 times a week, we're sending this information out now, whereas before it didn't get used hardly any time. So I am seeing a shift there on the corporate side. And it's because other corporations are just changing their business models, as you talked about earlier. So that's exciting to see, very exciting to see. And then, yeah, educating the guests. I mean, it's about when they get here. And the way I look at it, it's very challenging. It's our biggest challenge is education, because every single night we have new 200 to 300 people that we have to re-educate. Like, please sort your recycling and compost in the rooms. Not many hotels have compost and recycling the way we do, and we actually want you to sort it. And how do you communicate that, right? While the person's getting skipped the dishes. So, you know, it's constant education. We've got some fun ways that we do that, especially when they arrive on site, to help them be part of the process. So, yeah.
I'm curious about how that works with folks who maybe don't normally have access to composting, and what an opportunity that is when they do step into your spaces and then learn about that, and maybe they want to dig deeper after. That's just so amazing that that's available for them.
Yeah, we get, I mean, we haven't seen it in a while, but pre-pandemic, when we used to have a lot of Australians come to the hotel, and a lot of people from Europe, different parts of Europe, but the Australians especially, they would come and ask us later about like more information, because it was not something that they necessarily did at home, right? So we're always very proud to share why we do it and what our goals are. So, yeah.
It's so interesting to think of that work paying off on, like you said, Lisa, on a broader scale, you know, and I'm sure the efforts are hard, but, you know, everyone who changes every consumer who changes their pattern a little bit, their traditional ways of consuming and purchasing, that's where we all need to do some work and some reflection. And for some people, it's a bigger, more obvious thing to break. For some people, it's smaller, more ingrained, little other kinds of patterns. I was, you know, both of your interviews in Douglas speak to some incredible collaborations and working within the community to find partnerships for passing along unused pieces of furniture, for example, at the hotel, or collaborating on fundraisers for First Nations groups and others at Ecologist. And, you know, I actually I left thinking, well, how amazing they're doing this work, this research, creating these partnerships, extending your networks within the community as something that builds your sustainable business practice. And I was wondering if you could both speak to, you know, how you go about doing that. How do you find the right people to work with, and how do those collaborations support your sustainable business practices? I don't mind who goes first.
I can step in here. We love a good collaboration, let me tell you. I'm actually wearing one of our Ecology Today hoodies, and this is a collaboration with artist Randy Cook, and who's a hereditary chief with the Maptagila people. And basically what's happening there is BC Timber is kind of, again, sort of auctioning off large swaths of land to be logged eventually, without proper consent of these people. So Randy is going to court, and we want to support him in these efforts to be able to be recognized as a people, and sort of take that responsibility in doing appropriate and proper sort of acknowledgements and due process with them in their community. But yeah, I think like a lot of these collaborations come out of natural sort of events that people are either attending or advocating. A lot of our team members are just, you know, they're deeply connected to what's going on in the community. I know just recently, much of our team has been up near Fairy Creek. If anyone's heard of that sort of conflict with, you know, very intense police violence against, you know, our communities. It's just, it's eye-opening to see that firsthand, and also then, you know, sort of share commitments of how we can support people. So I think it really comes out of natural communication and connections with people. And then we work our darndest to make sure that we can support in the initiatives that matter most to them, and make sure also that the people who want to be represented have their voice at the front and center of any sort of communication that we have for these initiatives or fundraisers and things like that. But it usually is environmentally focused, as you can imagine. That's where we're looking to make moves. And in the future, it's going to be more Indigenous-led environmental stewardship initiatives, really putting that at the forefront of our business.
It's wonderful. You have such a strong platform, a media platform as well, with Ecologist Films, and you're using that. And I know the company really does emphasize and want to give the storytellers the platform to tell their own stories. And it sounds like that's a kind of, that is a backing for a lot of your collaborations as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, our latest collaboration would be Before They Fall. We're showing at the Whistler Film Festival this Friday, which is really exciting. But that's really a portion of how we like to storytell, if that's, you know, another accessible way to learn about some of these issues. Yeah, it's like another creative outlet to share with people.
And Trina, what about Parkside Hotel? I just, you know, in the feature we've got coming up on giving back, it's just such an incredible network of people that you or the hotel have established for making sure everything's used and anything that you have to get rid of, which I imagine pretty high turnover in the hotel sector. You know, how do you go about that?
Well, definitely it's ongoing work continuously. And as like you mentioned, it's high turnover. When the linen starts to kind of has to be replaced, which sadly, like yearly, a hotel is turning over linen. Linen for us, because we do buy fairly good quality, actually quite high quality. So it lasts us about 4 years, as long as no one's kind of destroyed it. But that really, you have 3 full sets of linen. And so every year you're turning out something that's 4 years old. And that's just not our hotel, but that's every hotel, right? So that's the Empress, that's the Inn at Laurel Point, that's all of us. So a number of years ago, like organizations like Soap for Hope opened up and started doing work. And there's a lot of organizations like Soap for Hope. They're the most more, I guess, widely known one. And so really we're, as an industry, especially on our linens, as an industry, I shouldn't say as an industry, here in Victoria, have gotten really good at using organizations like them for those linens to become Band-Aids or first aid material for disaster relief, and this disaster relief can be happening worldwide, or just those linens are used, for example, the fires, when people have to be comforted, to shelters. So we work a lot with Our Place directly ourselves in making sure. So every time we have our linen call, we reach out to Our Place. They're our first go-to that we use. And they take the bulk of it from the linen perspective. From furniture, because that does happen from time to time where you do, we're getting to the point where we're just right now starting to replace some of our furniture, because we are about 15 years old, this furniture. And so we do it slowly and we do it very conscientiously. We're definitely don't want to be throwing out furniture just because it has a nick on it. That's not acceptable. It needs to definitely have shown the love before we start to consider moving it on. So we work with like the Housing Society of Greater Victoria, who uses a lot of our furniture in senior centers, because again, it can be great for the recreation rooms and things like that. And we work a lot with the Refit store. They take a lot of our pieces and resell them for their projects. So, there's a lot of different areas those are the big areas of waste that hotels see for sure. We from a waste perspective, we shifted dispensers years ago, so we don't have the small bottle issue. But again, organizations like Soap for Hope would normally take your bottles and again reuse those, or Our Place reuses them. So it can be done, but it's ongoing work, because when you've got so many hotels trying to just feed these 2 or 3 organizations, these organizations get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that they sometimes get, and they have to say no more, right? Like right now, our curtains are starting to fall apart. So I'm just on the mission right now of starting to find a company that will take the old curtain material. I'm hoping they'll make them into bags or something, right? So we're just, because they can't go in the waste. They have to find a new home in some way or life, right? Those are kind of those partnerships for what we need to just move on and upcycle. But I mean, there's partnerships that we have, like with Habitat for Humanity and the Gingerbread Showcase on the more social side. And we have lots of other partnerships, but kind of like Lisa was saying, they kind of develop organically based on what either employees are telling us. Like we have employees who are very interested in a cause or a matter, and we get behind it. Or our green team, or maybe it's someone we already work with, many years ago, our coffee provider, and we said, look, we need something that's 100% compostable, right? And they went back to the drawing board and created a compostable coffee pot, well before the new ones started to come out here recently. So there's all kind of natural and organic how those develop.
Well, you've got to be the kind of person who is listening to and able to act on opportunities to make the most of all the things you've just said. So, congratulations and well done. It does leave me wondering, I don't know if you know, what percentage of hotels have moved to dispensers and still use bottles? It's, that it's a memory we all have of hotels and taking home bottles, and that, there's still a love of that. But, how far are we in that shift?
Because I haven't traveled abroad in a while, so I can't say, but locally I've seen a small shift. It's a small shift. I get a lot of questions regularly about it, like a lot of questions. And so that's great. The interest is there and businesses are starting to understand, but there's still this perception for some reason that, like, especially luxury is like, oh, like it's luxury, we can't have dispensers. And it's not true, because there are some hotels that are very luxury that are doing dispensers. It's how the dispensers are displayed and what they look like, right? And you can make really nice, like our dispensers are chrome and really beautiful that way, and we've had them for probably 6 years now, 7 years. So, I do know a few hotels that have gone completely dispenser, but it's not as much as I would like to have seen, for sure. I think that's a very easy, low-hanging fruit that we should have tackled by now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I ask about it, because it seems like an obvious one. But again, just to flag up the perceptions and expectations that you're both working on in very, traditional industries that have certain ways of doing things, certain standards of luxury. I was wondering, you've both talked about so many things you've done over the years to shift your impact towards carbon neutral businesses. Are there any any practices have been the most effective for you? Kind of have had a really high impact on your carbon offset or carbon outcomes?
I think, the moving the manufacturing back was a huge one for us, but as we move into the future, I think, what I encourage for future designers or organizations is really designing with the end in mind. So every little detail that we're putting into a product, how can we take those apart? How can we make sure that those go into appropriate streams where they might be able to be regenerated or maybe reused. We also just launched our Second Life program. So what this is people can resell their products that they've bought from Ecologist back onto the platform, right on the website, basically, and purchase pre-loved, keeping those products in use for longer. This actually is like an 80% reduction right off the bat in overall emissions to choose a product like this. We've definitely seen an increase in thrift as a general trend as well in the industry. So people are more comfortable with this, and 1 out of every 2 people are really a little bit more conscientious about the decisions that I feel like half, probably more than half at this stage. But when they're purchasing clothing specifically, it's a little bit more awareness, a little bit more intentionality when they're making these purchases. Do I need to buy this new, or is it a possibility to purchase something that's already had some life into it and I can extend that life? Just by extending something by 3 to 9 months, you can have a significant reduction in, if that would have gone to the waste, in terms of landfill emissions, even just regular, physical waste that's ending up somewhere. We really want to change that, as you said, change that perception of things being disposable. And really like bringing that back to craft as well. People can come into our actual factory where we see people working on the clothes and producing and putting their love and energy into making these products. It's a pretty amazing energy to go and witness that. We're also, sort of trialing a on-demand production possibility. So again, sort of reducing that overproduction or overconsumption idea. We're making quilted jackets that are made out of wool and cotton on demand. So you go into the shop, you try on your size, you place the order, and then we provide that to you in a couple of weeks. You can pick it up right where it was made if you want here in Victoria, or we can ship that to you as well. So again, just trying to play with how we perceive these systems that already exist and play around with possibility.
Nice. Well, that what a nice sentiment to think about designing with the end in mind. A big shift from designing with something that's just going to be flashy and picked up and, like you said, worn 8 to 10 times. And I think there's still so much more space for people to go with the buying to be made or buying on demand. Trina, how about you? What has been something that stood out or been a significant milestone for Parkside Hotels?
I think for us, our biggest milestone was actually, back, like I said earlier, I believe 2015, when we started doing our carbon emission calculation and actually seeing it on paper and really understanding, because before that, we kind of did, you kind of do it blindly, and that really gives you a roadmap to understand, okay, this is what my electricity is, this is what my paper is, this is, you know, because we calculate the staff commuting to and from work. So what does that look like, right? And so that really was a big game changer for us, because then we could really hone in our activities to really actually start going after more, okay, like, why is electricity high? Or great, water looks really good, but you know, and it was quite interesting. You find interesting facts. Like we found that for a number of years in a row, like the staff coming in alternative means like walking, biking, and transit was very, very high. So we were kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should be changing internal policies to reward them for doing that, right? And so so that was, for us, was a big kind of like eye opener, and really helped us then gear forward, which helped us lead towards being comfortable to then start offsetting, right? Because we did our carbon emissions for a number of years because we wanted to bring them down as much as we could before we started getting into offsetting, right? So for us, that was a real game changer. And the other thing too that I found as a general manager was actually changing some of our KPIs and changing them. So traditionally a hotel especially would look at, is your occupancy high? Is your rate high? Is your RevPAR good? That's it. And that's, you know, kind of how it is. What does your bottom line look like? So, you know, we changed that a couple of years ago to actually start changing the KPIs where, say, managers' bonuses are now tied to how well they do in managing electricity, or how well they're doing with managing water efficiencies, which was a big shift for us. But when we made that change, I definitely noticed even more engagement from the department heads and going, okay, like, I did this before, but now I'm really getting into it. So, so adding, it wasn't about taking away those original KPIs, you know, because guest satisfaction is important. All these things are very important to hotels, but it was adding more layers to it. And so that was another big shift that we've done that I feel has been important to us. But I love when Lisa talked about, you know, the end game, and it reminded me of this hotel chain in Europe called Scandic Hotels, and they actually purposely built all their rooms with recycled upused material. And when I last looked at one of their reports, when they decide to break down a room, it's something like 95% of it gets, again, it's built in a way so it gets a new life again. So it's always going through a continuous circle. So it's, I wish more of us could do that.
Well, some of those things and that point from Lisa, which is wonderful, is using you know, being able to start fresh from all the knowledge and all the experience we have at this point, and where we are a bit more enlightened business practices that you're both articulating so well today. Thank you for that. It's super interesting. I guess I didn't say to the audience, but if anyone does want to pop a question into Q&A, you're welcome to do so. I've got a kind of final question, and I just thought I'd ask both of you what, you know, what advice, if any, do you have for companies who might not have made big steps yet to shifting to a more green business practice, or to a more carbon neutral business model, but might feel overwhelmed?
Trina, I'm going to start first, if that's okay. It's actually following on what you were speaking about before, though. I think I've heard this phrase, and it really resonates with me a lot, being in the data sets quite often, but what can be measured can really be managed, right? So, you know, we can set those goals for the future, and specifically related to environmental impact. You know, once we have a way to measure something and then move forward, it's really powerful. But for anyone who's maybe not aware of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, I would take a look at that as a first starting point. You know, maybe identify, if it seems overwhelming for all of them, maybe think about, you know, one or two that you feel like you could really move the needle on. When we think about our business, it's responsible consumption and production, like where I feel is really powerful. But yeah, what's aligned with your business specifically, or your goals specifically, and then lean into that. once you've sort of identified that space, I think, again, sort of identifying what your current practices are as they are, like everyone's on a journey. And so we're going to move forward a little, as we can. But yeah, just sort of understanding what levers need to be pulled in terms of time, effort, how hard is it to do? Yeah, and sort of resources to make those changes happen. And then sort of set these time-bound expectations for yourself or your organization once you have that sort of level set, to be able to move forward in the future. And then also see and celebrate those successes, however small they are. You make sure you celebrate those, because it's amazing to be able to take those initiatives to the next level in any way. So I encourage you heavily to just get going, I guess. Yeah.
Great advice. Thanks, Lisa.
I definitely echo Lisa was saying, what's measurable is definitely a great way to start. I'm going to give a shout out to the BC Tourism Resilient Network. And I see some of the participants know what I'm referencing here, but is this network does workshops from time to time where businesses in the tourism scope can at least get one-on-one coaching assistance on starting with their 17 sustainable development goals. And so that's a great opportunity. And I do 100% agree with Lisa, is kind of start with those 17 sustainable development goals, and pick one or two or three. Don't look at all 17, because if altogether there's 196 indicators within, so you're going to be very overwhelmed and you're going to think, how am I going to achieve all of this? But pick something that resonates with your business model currently, and look at what you're doing already, like kind of take a catalog of what you're doing currently, and then look at how can you formalize that process a bit more, because a lot of businesses are doing things, they just haven't set targets, they haven't set measurements, they haven't set timelines. So take a look at that a little bit differently, and so like Lisa said, hers is consumption and responsible, which is number 12, I believe. So, ours is, I know, I'm a bit of a SDG nerd. Anyways, so ours is, climate action, life below water, clean drinking water, and life above land seem to be our biggest SDGs that we achieve. So, that's definitely the best way to go, and do look for government assistance out there to help you with the SDGs, because like the BC Tourism Resilient Network, there's other ones out there like them that can help businesses get started.
And reach out, there's lots of people who are excited in this space to support other organizations who are wanting to make an impact. That's also what I would say. Yeah, there's lots of really great ways to connect within the community. And you can let me know if you want to chat further too.
Well, there's a lot to think about, and you two have both shone such a kind of bright light into the two businesses that you represent, and an incredibly high level of detail. It's really helpful for a lot of businesses. You can read more about both of the businesses in our next issue. I'm really struck by, that starting point of the values and the business model, and, how deeply you're going into this specific, just the specific values around the businesses and the sectors that you work in. So that, if anything, that's great advice to take away and dig deep into your own, in terms of where you can start. Also, both of your advice about, finding that one goal is wonderful. And we have also in the next issue, we have Jill Doucette, the founder of Synergy Enterprises, writing a column with similar advice on a decarbonization strategy. So she goes into a lot of detail, but uses the same starting points that Trina and Lisa just brought up today. So you can get a little bit more detail there. I'd like to thank both of you so much for your time and your insight. I love talking to you. I love what you're both doing. And I love the change that you're helping consumers see and understand in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Trina, and thank you, Carla. That was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Lisa, I'll have to reach out to you for clothing for the staff here. So I'll be
Yes,
in touch.
please. Yes, please. Let's be in touch. Awesome.
Let us know when it happens. We'll all be visiting Parkside. Thank you, everyone. I'll end the recording now, and hope everyone can enjoy a little bit of the sunshine wherever you are today.
Awesome. Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.